Karibu kwenye Msasa, where we talk to successful people about failure. So, around 2018, maybe, I was working in my first advertising job as a media specialist. And I remember there was this particular pitch, and I was writing the media strategy for it. At that time, I thought it was like very smart. So I was going with an agenda, let's do radio. And nakumbuka, we're presenting, and the client was one of those people who were very big believers of digital, not very big believers of traditional. And it was like, but why, Elisha, why radio? And I was like, because you can't shut your ears. And our guest today has 500,000 people, which is basically plus or minus 1 million ears listening to her station. She is the founder and owner of the biggest radio in southern Tanzania. And she is also, as I've learned, and we're going to learn together today, a very impact-driven media professional. Jackie Lawrence, karibu kwenye Msasa.
Asante sana.
So, Jackie, share with me, what is the one piece of wisdom that you've heard before that you can never forget?
It would definitely be this one. People do not buy products. They buy better versions of themselves. For instance, they're not just buying a shoe. They're buying a shoe that can make them run better. They're not buying a radio service. They're buying a radio that can make them reach more people. What can I do more with your service or your product? I'm not just buying a breakfast with you. I'm buying comfortability, how good I am after I've had your breakfast. So that's the biggest advice I have gotten, that what more is your service giving the end user that they need you? How do they see themselves better with you?
Are you sure you're a journalist or a marketer?
Both.
Safi.
Yeah.
And it's been 12 years, plus or minus 14, almost 15 years of pushing for this big dream of doing impactful communications through radio. If you had to do a documentary about where you've been, where you are now, and what the future holds, what would the title be?
It would be Optimal Self for God. I know, not too religious, but one thing that I believe is that someone once told me a while ago that every child is born with a purpose. Every single challenge in the world, a child is born to solve it. So as we grow, we find that one thing that we find really irritating, that we want to solve it. That is your purpose, to solve it. That's what you're born to do. And I highly believe that when God created us, He created us to solve one little challenge in the world. And altogether, we make this community of people who have the solutions of everything that are bothering this universe with. And if I were to make a documentary, I would want to document it on how I have been the best self to solve challenges with media.
So optimal
self for God.
With God.
For God.
For God.
Yes.
Optimal self for God.
How have you put your best self forward to fulfill the purpose that you were born to do?
All right. But why for God?
Because I believe that we were created for a divine purpose. Every single person has a solution to one single problem in this world. Every single person. So what is that one thing that you feel that you can do very best? How good are you doing it? You know, for the creator, the one who put you on this, how good are you doing that thing? And have you put your best self forward? Is it music? Is it art? How is that solving a community challenge, a problem, or is it being a solution to the community that you serve? So I always wanted to be that example, that I want to be this media that challenges the society to be the best version of itself. And how do we transform that so that people see and they can implicate that in their areas, in accounting, in art, in music?
Kwa hiyo wale washikaji ambao they're not doing their calling on a single econom.
They eventually find their calling.
Eventually. Jackie, as one of the first few females to own a media house, ulikuwa unatupa story kidogo. Please, can you share with the audience a shocking moment that you had as a female media house owner?
So actually, the shocking moment was realizing I was one of the few female media owners in the country.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like for 5, maybe 4 years, I was just trying to get business done, trying to get impact done. And then one morning, one of my clients tells me, by the way, do you know that you are the only female media owner that we have met in the last 5 years? I was like, no. Really? And he tells me this so casually, and I've never thought about it. And it's the first time that I knew about it. That was like, I think 6 years ago. So I researched into it and I realized there were only 5 female media owners in radio broadcasting. And I was like, well, wow, but it never made a difference in anything that I was doing. So I never looked into it. It was one of those facts that someone throws in that you're like, okay, interesting. But the fact that there were so few really made me kind of sad.
Sad?
Yeah.
Okay, why?
Because it made me realize that the opportunity to have your voice amplified is not really guaranteed for the female population in the country. And it has to do more than, economics, access to capital. So it made me have a bigger load on my shoulder, that I have a bigger task to fulfill. Yeah.
Okay. I would assume it would also work in your advantage, though, right? I mean, I'll explain the thinking and then correct me, okay?
Okay.
I would assume, because this is the sad part, yes, but then there's also the good part of being unique. You're in your own unique lane. And I can imagine in your world, you work with corporates, but you also work with a lot of impact-driven organizations, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't that work in your favor?
In the world that we live in, it might look good that there are a few female media owners, and you're in the basket, but the bigger picture is that you have a bigger task to fulfill. You have a bigger load on your shoulders. You're being judged by a whole industry. So it's a lot of pressure. As much as it's a lot of good, but it's also a lot of pressure that before that was brought to me, I never thought about it. And then it was brought to me, and now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, do I have to fulfill the whole industry's needs? So it's good and bad.
Okay.
And that made me start something that wanted me to introduce more females into media.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something you proactively do?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How? Like through trainings, or like you actually hire them?
So we have before we actually have 100 interns yearly on our radio station.
Whoa.
And we try to make sure that 60% of them are female.
Nice.
And after that, I did that for a while. And now we're partnered with another organization that trains females into media, from broadcasting, airing, all the skills that they need. Because I felt that it shouldn't be fair that there are few media owners or few media corporates in female sector. So I thought that I should do something about it.
I'm curious, how high is the barrier to entry to like owning a radio station?
It's really high.
Okay.
It's really high. So for me, something that really helped me into that sector is that I have entrepreneurial parents who are extremely supportive, who could reach that barrier and break it. Not everyone is that fortunate. In Tanzania, we have areas where to own such a media of a small scale would take a high amount of capital. But for women who have no access to land, no access to capital, that's a barrier. It's difficult for them to break into. So the barrier is high. So saying that you can solve it in a day, in a month, in a year, it's not really feasible. Yeah.
Kuzeni kupata tu leseni si mchezo.
Yeah, kupata leseni. And you have to applaud the authorities that are standing by it. They try to ensure that if we give you a media license, you are financially capable to serve this population. You have to prove that you're financially capable to serve this population. And not every media owner that comes can prove that they're financially capable. That's why you find that most media owners are entrepreneurs who take this as another business to grow their business, to grow that region. So for most females who don't have access to that sort of capital, it's a big barrier.
That's a very interesting observation. And sababu nikifikiria hata kwa mfano, I grew up in Arusha. Nikifikiria media houses that were thriving in Arusha, some of which still are.
Yeah.
Karibia zote miliki anamishi zingine nyingi kinoma ambazo hata hazihusiani na.
Yeah.
So are they doing that partly to promote their own business, or are they like moving money from this pocket to that pocket to sustain the business?
So usually what happens is authorities demand that you are financially capable to serve the population that you want to serve. So no one is going to come about and be a startup in the media. They already have to have another business that is making them an income for them to prove that they can service this media.
Oh, so that's part of proving.
Exactly.
I have another source of revenue.
Yes.
And I can sustain myself and my business and this business.
Exactly.
That's a law?
I don't think it's a law, but it's just a prerequisite that they put.
Okay.
Because media it's very expensive. And they want to ensure that if you want to serve this population, you have to be financially capable.
I never knew that. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to take you back a few years before Mbeya Highlands. Where did this journalistic thing come from?
So I was a blogger. I was a blogger for the longest time. I think maybe 5 years, if not 4 years. And
what year was that? Like
2009.
Okay.
Up to 2010-ish. 2009 up to 2011, I think.
What was the name of your blog?
La Princesa World.
La Princesa World. That's nice.
I know.
Was it like Barbie stories?
No, actually it wasn't Barbie stories. But I considered myself a princess for good reasons.
Okay.
But one thing I learned about blogging, when I started blogging, I realized that there are a lot of uninformed people who just don't know what Africa looks like, what Tanzania looks like. And there are a lot of people in Tanzania, in different regions, who don't know what the bigger world looks like. And that made me very interested in journalism. Like, I actually have a voice to show people what's going on in the world and to show the world what's going on in my country. And it created a space for me that felt important. I was in college when I was running the blog. And when I got back, I was invited to the State House. I was invited to fashion events. Just because I had a platform. And that made me feel, wow, this tiny little blog is making me go all these areas just because I'm showing people what's going on in the world. And that's where my passion for media began.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So like growing up, would you always write? Because you'd hear these stories where alikuwa poet, alikuwa anaandika nyimbo, anaandika vitabu. Was that you or?
That was me.
Okay.
All me. I was writing poetry all the way since 15, 14 years old. I was writing poems. I was writing short stories. I was basically a writer. So going into blogging, everyone, I think, expected it. Because at the time, it was the next big thing. It was a time when people like Isami Chuzi were coming out. And so I ventured into it. Yeah.
I'm curious. Have you ever wondered about, because you had this interest that became a passion, that became your immediate and current business, right?
Yeah.
Had you ever worked at another media house?
No.
No?
Not at all. Funny thing is
Yeah.
that I tried, but everyone thought your ideas were crazy.
Ideas are crazy?
Yes.
Okay.
Why? Because when I started in media, I was thinking about rural population. Because I felt like they're the ones who were not reached. National media was just looking at urban areas. And every time I mentioned it to other medias, this is what I wanted to do, they were
Community radio.
No, why would you do that? It's not a market that has access to capital that we can use for advertisers. Why would you go that direction? So I was shunned down.
Okay. So why did you?
Well, I went towards it because one reason, when I came back from college and I went back to my village, to my grandmother, and I remember complaining to her that we live in a village, there is no access to water. You don't even have water in your taps. You don't have electricity. You don't have proper roads. What are you doing about it? And I was questioning her as a straight graduate, thinking I'm all smart and, I should push them for answers. And she went, what are you doing about it? You're the one who went to school. You're the one who's, you're exposed. What are you doing about it? We can't do nothing about it. We're in the village. So how are you transforming this region that you came from? And that totally changed my perception that, okay, I can't blame anyone for this situation. What exactly can I do about this? And that's where radio came about, so that I could shed light to community plights that are hidden or not told, so that they could call for accountability from the government, local NGOs, and the like.
It's very cool. Because she turned the table, wewe je unafanya nini?
Exactly.
Be the change
When
you
do
want to see.
umesoma?
It's very interesting. From a business angle. So because I've had the chance, being that I'm in marketing and media in a different way, I have had the chance to speak with a few media owners, even with a few presenters and producers who work in community radios. And there's always, ever so subtly, there's always a way where kama vile wanatamani urban radio kind of numbers and urban radio kind of appeal. And from the business angle, I guess, urban radio kind of revenue, right? Yeah. In your opinion, what are the pros and cons of being a community-based radio versus being an urban radio station?
So one thing, we're not really a community radio. We're a commercial radio.
Nice.
But a few years ago, someone gave me a book. And I think I was going through a very low season in my business and in life in general. And it was a season when people weren't taking radios like us seriously. We call ourselves regional radios because we're not much in urban areas. The book was called, I think, David and Goliath. It was about how in your size, you can challenge anyone else as long as you use your commercial advantage. And at the time, my advantage is that I command a huge local population. I am a radio that is in southern Tanzania. I reach up to 2.5 million people. All day I talk to them and they listen to me, but there are national radios who command maybe 50-30% of that market. They're bigger, but they listen to me more. So how do you use that to your advantage? And that book made me feel huge because it made me realize I have a power in the market that I command. These are people who I can tell their stories on a local scale. I can tell Mama Mwajuma, who's in that village, what she's going through with her son who stole a motorbike and went partying, and how she's not happy about it.
Yes.
But a national radio can talk about that because it's not a national agenda.
Yes.
So how do I use that to my advantage? So that's where I came in, that I never became sad that I don't have that national power. I became happy that I have that local power to influence that community that I serve. So that's how I dealt with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karibu kwenye Msasa, where we talk to successful people about failure. You corrected me. You said you're commercial radio, not a community radio.
Yes.
Educate me.
So a community radio is much more looking into the community that they serve locally. It would be maybe a district or two.
Okay.
But a commercial radio is one that is not just about development and community, but all about trade, the whole area that they serve. They have a value to expansion. So with a commercial radio, we deal with all matters, from the economy of the region to of course, the development agenda, to the government, they want to say to people, the whole shenanigans of the community that we serve.
Right.
Not just centered towards a certain region or a certain cause.
Okay. It's a broader scope.
Exactly.
Yeah, with local context.
Exactly.
So then that becomes the biggest strength, isn't it?
Yes.
Local context.
Yeah.
But I can tell you about this, but we can also really, really narrow down on Mama Mwajuma.
Exactly.
Boda driver ambaye hajarudisha.
And
her son alichofanya 1, 2, 3.
Exactly.
Unajua, I was speaking to a friend not too long ago, and he shared some interesting point of view. Akananiambia, hivi unajua, Elisha, kuna sehemu kama Marekani, unajua, every state, has a local TV and radio that only talks about that local state, unless it's national news, right? And, he was, and then he also painted another picture. So imagine, kwa mfano, Dar es Salaam, kungekuwa kuna radio na TV ya Dar es Salaam tu. Ambayo inaongelea vitu vya Dar es Salaam tu. Mvua ikinyesha, washikaji wanakuambia bwana sehemu fulani kuna mafuriko usipite. Unajua vitu ambavyo vinahusiana na Dar tu. They don't talk about Arusha, they don't talk about Mwanza, they don't talk about Zanzibar, just that. And the idea was interesting, but later on I also understood what he was trying to drive at. And what he was driving at was one of the challenges that radio and mainstream media, TV included, print as well, seem to be struggling with is the ease in which people right now have access to information because of our mobile devices and social. So unakuta moto unawaka sehemu fulani, yaki ushanitumia picha WhatsApp tushaiongelea before the evening news, right? So as a media house, how do you tackle that? Or how do you position yourself in ways that can still be relevant and meaningful in a world where there's so much access to information?
So one way that we look at it as a radio station is, one thing you must understand, as much as mobile is huge in Africa, huge in Tanzania, there is still a huge demand for radio. In urban areas, everyone has access to information. Everyone has internet. Everyone has 2-3 phones. But you have to understand that more than 75% of the population live in rural areas who don't have access to information the way we usually have in urban areas. Last time I checked with research, there are only, I think, 10 million smartphones within the country. So the numbers are still very low. And this is for Tanzania alone. And we're a well-developed country. So you can think about the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. So one way we look at it is that the demand for radio is still really vast. It's free, wide geographical population reach in one instance. And one way that media complements us, social media complements us to reach all populations, but it's not a competition to us. It's a complement to us. we see that the numbers of social media, they really help us grow our audience in different instances. One way we work alongside that is we try to see what the population needs at that time and how we reach it. And with radio, I'm not sure if these numbers are really recent, but last time we checked, it was 81% of people have access to information with radio alone. This is more than all the social media numbers combined.
Yeah.
And this means we have a bigger task to ensure that they have the right information reaching to them. One way that we localize content is we look at the demands of the population. What do they need? What are they struggling with? And how do we bring these people towards them? That's what we do.
That's very well put. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that you talked about providing accurate information. Because I think, for instance, the power that traditional media also has is credibility. And this is something, for instance, that we don't have with digital content. Because anybody can be a thought leader in anything, and whoever makes the most noise gets the most traction. We have clickbait. And kwa mfano ukiangalia, I'm, for instance, directly involved in a project where we're figuring out how to help young people tackle misinformation. I'm really, really curious if that's an agenda for you, as a media house, but specifically for you and your station. Hivi mna deal vipi na uvumi unaotokea mtandaoni ambao saa zingine sio wa kweli? Unajua, it's not from a reliable source.
Yeah. So this is something that has been troubling almost medias across the world. I remember, I think it was 2-3 years ago, the Tanzanian government came about with a law called the Media Services Act, whereby if you were caught spreading misinformation, you could be jailed. There's a jail time allotment. You are not allowed to spread information that's you're not sure about. And a lot of people were critical about the law, and it brought quite an uproar. But us as media houses, although we saw challenges in implementing the law, but we understood where that was coming from. Because we live in a world today where everyone is a medium. As long as you have 3,000 followers, 4,000, you're a medium.
You're a medium, yeah.
You could spread information that's not true and people could believe it. You're in urban areas and you think, oh, someone can Google it and, and understand if it's a lie or not. But we have seen populations in rural Tanzania, especially during COVID, a video is spread from a movie of thousands of people dying, and your grandmother is showing this to you, like, people are dying and it's 7,000 people, they just fell dead, and she believes it. But who is punishing that person who's sharing it? No one.
No one.
I, as a media house, am fined if I spread false information. But who is fining that singular person who has 7,000 followers who's spreading misinformation? No one.
No one.
So we've seen in other countries in the West, we've seen in USA and UK, where they find the platforms, but then, and we saw people like Facebook get huge fines on spreading misinformation until they started means to verify information and Twitter. But in our country, they did the law that you get fined as a person for spreading misinformation. And as much as there was an uproar, we as medias, we understood where that was coming from. Because we're having a lot of misinformation spread on platforms. As a media, what we do, we censor information. We try to make sure that the information that's coming to you is valid. We're trying to make sure that any information that's going around, you can tell it to us. We can verify it. We have data journalists. We have investigative journalists. We can ensure that the information that you have is true. And that's why we are important, because there's this saying that it's not true until you heard it on radio or you heard it on a newspaper. And that's what we bank on. Like all the information that you hear, until you've heard it on radio, you can rest assured that
because you're an institution.
Exactly, we're an institution.
Yeah. For an individual, though, I think it's tricky to find them. Unajua kanini? Kwa sababu most people believe things very quickly. Not everybody researches, questions, Googles, right?
Yeah.
And more so, we believe negative things really quickly. Like bad news is like, yes, this
Travels
is true.
fast.
It's bad.
Yeah, it travels fast.
It travels fast. And saa zingine unakuta sasa yule anaye spread, hajui kwamba yeye ana spread misinformation.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done about that? Is there some kind of education that can be done with regards to being able to kind of analyze, think, or have at least an element of doubt kwa kitu ambacho hakijatoka from a source? Because Facebook is not a media house.
It's not.
WhatsApp is not a media house. Lakini ni kweli kama mfano uliosema sijui bibi anakutumia nini? Tuna watu wazima. Watu wazima ndio kabisa wanapotea kuliko hata sisi vijana yani.
True.
Yani anakutumia kitu unasema
Where did this come
from yani?
The only way to ensure that is contained is when the platforms themselves can ensure that they can verify the information that's shared. Individually, it's hard. It goes beyond the borders of, what do you call this? Bias. Is it true? Is it not true? Who is the right source of information? And someone might think they're sharing good information while it's not really true. So it all goes back to the platform. How are every platform needs fact-checking mechanisms to ensure that the information is shared is accurate. Yeah.
Tuna kazi kinoma.
Exactly.
Yeah, ila, if it's not from radio,
it's not true.
It's not true. That's a good campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hivi Mbehela zimeanza mwaka gani?
2009.
2009.
Exactly.
Wow, that's like 14 years.
Yeah, but so operations actually began 2011-ish.
Okay.
So 2009 is when we got our licensing, all the legal shenanigans done.
Yeah. That's a lot of experience. Off the top of your head, can you share one or two lessons that you cherish the most over the past 10 years of building from scratch?
Okay. One thing that we learned is when we began the radio station, we were thinking we were actually the first radio in southern Tanzania in Mbeya.
Okay.
And when we started, we had these big dreams, wanted to be the BBC of southern Tanzania, wanted to be everything, wanted to be the voice. And, we forgot ourselves in that. Tulijisahau kwamba tuna serve a population of people who did not even have access to water or electricity.
Right.
And we're serving a population of people who were being challenged by poverty. So this is one lesson that we learned that really transformed our radio. We took upon our first big advertiser, a very big beverage company. We were happy. We saw the numbers. We bought the cars. We bought the houses. And we're like, this is where we're going. And then the advertiser pulled out in 2 months. And they were saying, Jackie, we don't see the numbers that we thought we'd see with your radio. And we're like, there's no way. We're the only radio here. How are you not seeing our advertising? How are you not seeing it work?
Oh, they were not seeing return on ad spend.
Yeah, they were not seeing return on ad spend. And it made us really frustrated. And we did a lot of research to see how do we get them back because they left. And what we learned changed our mind on how we work with rural populations, because that's mostly who we're serving, rural populations. We learned we were selling a luxury beverage to a population that could not afford a luxury beverage.
So wrong targeting.
Wrong targeting. And this made us, okay, how do we...
Well, who did the wrong targeting? The clients?
We did the wrong targeting.
You sold
We sold.
Okay.
We promised sales. We are the one who promised big numbers. Because we wanted to buy the car, remember?
Right.
And then we bought the cars in our head. We sold them later. But that is the interesting thing that transformed us. We did research and realized the population cannot afford this beverage that we're selling. So we had to go back. Why can't they afford it? And that's when we realized this population does not have water. They do not have electricity. They do not even have roads. So whatever money they get, they're buying water. They're buying electricity. They're buying solar. So they don't have spare money to buy a luxury
Fancy
beverage or fancy drinks. So that's when we transformed our media to just a commercial radio to how do we do media for development. So we wanted to make sure that we can solve your problems so that we can have your money.
Wait, say that again.
So this is the basic need of an ordinary human being.
Yeah.
They have, wanaifukumi, sindio. Hiyo ifukumi wanunue nini? Will they buy water? Will they buy a drink? Or will they buy a sweet or mobile, or will they mobile bundle? You know, what will they buy? So if you solve all the basic needs, the money that remains on their hand, they can buy luxury goods.
It's surplus.
Exactly, surplus. So until you solve their basic needs, they will not buy luxury goods. So for the first, I think, 3-4 years, we brought governments, local governments, to ensure that they solve the rural population's plights so that they have enough surplus left to buy luxury goods.
Yes. So essentially improving the standard of living, quote unquote.
So once we did that, we did a lot of live forums, a lot of public forums in rural areas. We brought a lot of local government along in our public forums, and they started to see, okay, there was a miscommunication here. We can change this here. So there was more access to public services. And they actually started to have more access to funding for luxury goods, like a soda, a phone. So we saw that eventually, but after tackling what was the challenge in the market.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That took around 3-4 years?
Maybe 5. 5, yeah.
Sasa, in the meantime, how is the station surviving?
Oh, that took a lot of funding from different organizations, grants, embassies. It was an idea that we had that we placed into different organizations who were similar-minded, and they supported us. So we went with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So in a media house, you work with journalists, largely, right?
Yes.
And, in a different sphere, we call them content creators.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest experience working with people of that nature? Because, there's skill, there's also talent, right? Some people are just blessed storytellers. And there's a lot of nurturing that usually has to happen, especially when there's more talent than skill.
Yeah.
What has been like the hurdles that you had to overcome to make sure that, okay, this is where we're going, this is the vision, this is how we communicate, this is the voice, and you can't listen to radio all the time?
For me, I think you have to have a vision, and your vision has to be loud. It will not be understood most of the times. You will have to repeat yourself a lot of times. But when they do get it, they get it. Because what we thought in the beginning that we were studying a radio, we're going to be rich, we're going to host a lot of clients. It didn't happen. We ended up solving problems and then working from there. But that's something that I had to repeat to a team of journalists who were young like me, some younger than me, for them to actually get it. Some had to see it to actually get it. So just the vision. What is it? What are you leading into? And what is the bigger picture of that vision? My bigger picture was I wanted media to be more than just an entertainment source.
Right.
To be a solution, to be a bridge. Nobody got that when we were beginning, but eventually when they're seeing change because of the radio programs that you are doing, they're like, okay, we see this. We can implicate this. I had to do it for maybe a year, maybe 2. But after that, the journalists kept bringing up ideas by themselves.
Nice.
So that.
Yeah. Media as a bridge. I really, really like the sound of that because it's comms. And, the more people are aware about the opportunities around them, the more likely they are to take right action. Even when you're thinking about behavioral change interventions,
Yes.
you can't do it without media.
And behavioral change communication.
Yes, right? Yeah. In the context of trying to build bridges so that we can solve problems, can you share a time when the bridge wasn't bridging? Karibu kwenye Msasa, where we talk to successful people about failure.
Oh, yeah, lots of times. So we once went to this village. It was really controversial. It's Ruiwa. That's what the village is called. Ruiwa. It's in Barali.
That's in
Barali. It's in Bear. Barali. This is a village that had no electricity, no water, 0 hospitals. It didn't even have a road to go to that village. And I remember so we used to arrange public forums for the whole of southern Tanzania. And my journalists were like, this is the perfect village. It has nothing. And I was like, but how are we getting there? Like, no, this is the perfect place because it's a blueprint. If we do a live forum there and impact happens, it'll be directly from us. Mm-hmm. So we went to, I think it was they're called DED, executive director of that municipal. They were very hesitant about going there because they understand that village is lacking a lot of services. And it's not purposely. Usually how budgets happen is that the village has to recommend the budget to what they call diwanis, and then they take them up to the director of the municipal, and then they take them up to the ministry. So not everybody knows that huo mpangilio. Kwa unakuta wale wanakijiji wasipoweka vile vitu mbele havifanyiki. Kwa sababu havifanyiki, kila mtoto analaumu serikali, lakini mwananchi mwenyewe hajawajibika kuleta mahitaji yake mbele. Kwa ilikuwa challenge sana kwa wale wakurugenzi to even come to that meeting. They suggested we have police there. It was very violent because they thought that the village people would be violent. They have nothing. But one way we went about it is we were very diplomatic. We did a lot of investigative journalism within the village, and we assured them that, listen, we're not here to start trouble. If you're enemies with the government, you're not going to win. They are coming here so that they can listen to you and they can see what can be done. The best thing you can do is suggest solutions. If you look at your situation as a problem, it will be a problem. But if you look at it as an opportunity, it will be an opportunity.
Yes.
Very diplomatic about it. And the thing that saved us is we have 0 opinion. We're media.
Yeah.
We're just here to listen. And of course, the local government came and they had the meeting. It was violent, but they actually got a lot of solutions from the people. The people are willing. Meeting. Yes, in the same meeting. The people are willing to build the wells with the government. Like, you can just bring the equipment. We have the manpower. Sisi tutajenga. Hata barabara mkiwa mnajenga, sisi tuna vijana. Wanaweza kajenga na nyie. Just bring the equipment.
Yeah.
And the local government were very shocked. Like, you're willing to help out? Even when we don't have a budget? We're like, yeah. And it was mind-boggling for me. Like, these 2 people who are scared of each other are now forming solutions. And that's one way we did it. A lot of diplomacy, a lot of neutrality. Yeah.
The positioning is neutral, but is it always really neutral?
You have to be. You have to be. Because when you're a media, you cannot be a blamer. I don't know what you call it.
You can't
point fingers. You have to be the one that's showing people what's going on. And one thing we learned about neutrality is most media stand on the side of the population, on the side of the people. Sometimes the people are the challenge. What do you do in that instance? So we learned that we are better off being the mediator than being the one pointing fingers. And one thing we learned that was very harsh for us is that when the government and the people are enemies, you're not going to have change in that region. You're better off being a mediator. You're better off ensuring these two people can meet eye to eye, even if they argue for 2 days, but they come up with a solution to solve whatever challenge that's on the table. Because we have gone into villages where there are kuna miradi imeachiwa kwa wanakijiji na imekufa. Kuna miradi imeachiwa kwa wananchi na haijaendelea. So who's speaking up on that? So we could not afford to be on anyone's side. We would just be neutral.
You're painting a very different picture about what a regional media house could be, should be doing in my head. It's very interesting. It's very enlightening. You mentioned something about understanding the community that you serve. And from your point of view, have you ever been put in positions where you had to say no to ad revenue?
Oh, yes, very many times. Very many times.
Very many times?
Yes. Yes.
And
very many times.
Keep this check, please.
Being a regional media house, you get a lot of people who come towards you and say, you can deal with this amount or you can deal with this tender, but it's not it doesn't suffice.
How so? Give me context.
I can give you an example. When we started our media, for the first 4, if not 5 years, we had clients and we had partner organizations who convinced us that we were a very small media house. So we should accept whatever we get.
Oh, okay.
You understand?
Mukula.
And we did for maybe 4, 3 years. But we were surviving on scrap. We could not manage our expenses. We could not manage our running costs. We were surviving literally on scraps because we accepted that. And we accepted it blindly because we had no numbers. We didn't have the research to back it up that we were bigger than what they were telling us we were. And that's one thing I learned. When you let someone tell you who you are, they will not give you a nice picture. So eventually we got tired. Like, why are we not working? Why is everything so difficult? Why can't we buy shoes? You know? And we did a very huge research on our listener base and our listener base, our reach. And that was the turning point for us. We realized, 1, we're the number 1 media in the region. 2, we had more listeners than everyone was telling us we had. That's when we're like, wait a minute. This is not true. Everything they've been telling us has been not true, but they've been telling us that they can control the numbers.
They were controlling the narrative.
Exactly. So that's when we were like, no, we're going to set our numbers. We're going to set our narrative. This is what we are. This is what we give. If you don't like it, goodbye. And that's when everything started to change for us. When we said, this is who we are, take it or leave it.
Yeah. To take you back to the question, the other side of that same question is, have you ever had to say no to ad revenue because the product didn't match the audience?
Oh, yeah, we have. We have. Very many times we've said no to products that we don't feel fit the market that we serve. We serve quite a rural population, 59% rural, the rest is urban. And there are some instances where we get clients who want to reach that population that a product that we don't feel fits. What we feel is that when we do say yes to that client, when they do get a bad review, it's bad for us.
Yeah.
So they would deter our name to say we did not make them reach their goal, but initially the product does not serve the market.
Yeah.
So very many times we'd have to say, okay, this product does not fit.
It's not a fit.
And because we have the research to provide it, we actually give them some. This is what the clients want. This is a profile picture of every listener that we serve. If this does not fit your product market, there's no point. Yeah.
You do this research every year?
Yearly. Yearly.
It's a good investment on yourself, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Do other media houses do that?
Some do, I'm not sure. But yeah.
And what's been the best failure you've ever had as a media house?
The best feeling?
The best failure.
Oh, the best failure.
That you're like, so you're going to fimbo na chapa, you know, my goodness, lakini bora ni chapa nimejifunza.
Okay, this reminds me of the time when, so we wanted to venture in PR.
Like as a PR agency or?
Yeah, we wanted to start a PR section in our media house.
Okay.
And we were very aggressive about it because in Southern Tanzania, most of the clients that we're working with, when they come to the regional side, they don't know exactly how to reach media in the areas that we serve. So we're like, okay, this is an opportunity. We're going to take it. And we structured our products. We structured everything, how we're going to do it. And we got our first tender, very big company, agriculture, and signed a big contract with them. And it flopped. We took in the contract and we made a lot of mistakes with that. Firstly, the client did not understand what PR is and what it means and how it works. So when we first took them in, they were thinking, we'll handle everything and then we can pay you maybe later on. We can finish all the details later on. We didn't have a briefing with them. We didn't even have a product description. They just think we send you captions and you do everything. And
Captions?
Exactly. And
Wow.
we were hopeful because they were a big company. We're like, okay, eventually they're going to send us everything that we need. They never did. So here comes the big event that they were supposed to do. And it's in Southern Tanzania. It's in Mbeya. And we have embassies. We have the central government there. We have the prime minister there. They didn't send us anything. We don't have content. We don't even have money. We don't have nothing. They just left us there to dry. And there I was. I have summoned 20 journalists to cover this event. I don't know anything about it. We don't even have a briefing. And it was a disaster. It failed. The PR section of our company failed before it started because we had a lot of people blaming us like, oh, the journalists didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't know what questions to ask. They didn't even have nauli kwenda kwa sehemu ambazo walikuwa naenda. The client did not specify exactly what was needed, areas that needed to go. So it was a failure. And I remember I cried for 3 days, locked myself in my house after that. But then it taught us a very valuable lesson that you have to prepare for everything. And something like that needed further preparation from the client, how to take them, walk them towards it, every single step. Sometimes we look at these big companies and we think, oh, they surely know what they're doing. They'll just give us everything and we'll just go away. It doesn't work like that. You have to shake their hand and walk them through it. Some of them are not aware of what it takes to do something with them.
You have to prepare for everything.
Everything. Yeah.
So with that lesson, didn't you pursue it a little bit further? Knowing that, okay, next time akija lazima nihakikishe na brief, lazima nihakikishe, lazima nihakikishe.
We incorporated PR into their packages. Like if you advertise that, we'd incorporate PR in that. So 3-4 months before, we'd have all the information that we need. But we never called it PR anymore.
What do you call it?
Activations.
Okay.
So it made it less formal. Yeah.
Okay. Some heal alone whenever they're going through a tough time. Others need others to be able to kind of go through a rough time, especially when stuff doesn't go how you expected it to go. Which personality are you?
I'm a crier. I'm a big crier. I'm not even ashamed about it. So I'm a last born. So shamelessly, I would go back home to my parents and cry my eyes out. But one thing I've learned is self-expression. You should really let yourself feel and let all that go and not bundle yourself inside the failure. Because One thing I've learned about failure is that unajua kama mtoto anaelewa kwamba yeye ni mtoto. Because they don't struggle to put on their nappies. If they can't, they won't. They can't. Do you understand kwamba wewe ni mtoto? When you understand kwamba wewe ni mtoto, you will not struggle with failure. You will take it as a learning point. And that's one way that I always looked at it. It never really fazed me because whenever I felt like something is huge upon myself, I would really let myself go and say, I want to bask in this, learn in this, and see how to tackle this. I can sit down for a whole day, relearn everything that I thought was not working, ensure how do I walk alongside it. Yeah.
Do you believe in manifestation?
No and yes.
No and yes.
Yes.
What's the no? What's the yes?
The no is I don't feel like you can sit in one corner and say something and it happens. The yes is the stronger your belief system, the bigger your outcome. But your belief system has to work with action. Many people, when they think of manifestation, they just think you can sit in a corner, say something, and it happens. But your action towards it will actually determine if it will or not.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. So are you one of those people who visualize before they want to do something?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah? And then the visualization is the planning for the action steps? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, in the same headspace of planning and making actionable plans, they can actually get you to where you want to be. We have a segment in our show, and the segment is called Nje Boxing. Kwenye Nje Boxing, it's basically a segment where we kind of narrow down with a subject matter expert like yourself. And from everything that you've seen and experienced, especially within the context of using media as a powerful, powerful tool to drive behavior change, to change perception, to drive revenue or impact. Big or small client. Before I go to a media house, or specifically before I come to Jackie on Bear Highlands, when I'm choosing Jackie on Bear Highlands as a partner, what checklists should I have already made in my head before I even bother to give you a call?
Impact. I talk a lot in examples.
Okay.
So one thing we like to do is we don't say we just advertise or we just take you up on a client, but we want to be about your business or about your organization.
Okay.
For instance, we had a blood donating group a few years ago, and they were thinking, we can surely advertise with you, tell people we're at this location, they come donate blood. But we're like, no, we don't just do that. Why don't we make a concert? The entry of the concert is a blood donation.
That's dope.
I know. And
yeah, it's like a vampire party.
They did not believe, like, what? What are you talking? Is that even legal? Like, yeah, we'll find out. The police come, they come.
Right? That's dope. Dope idea.
And that's what we want to do. And that's what we're always doing. We're looking at what is your goal? How do we get there with our media? We have 500,000 people listen to us. Don't just think of placing an advert there. How do we get these people to you? If you can tell them we have a concert, give us your blood. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So that's what you should think of. What's your impact and how do we grow it with us?
And what do you do when they don't have an impact in mind?
So we struggle with them. We have gone to board meetings with them. We have gone to strategic meetings, sales strategies. If they don't have an impact, we'd try to make one with them. You must have a vision in your company. Must be something you're looking into. How do we tap that? That's what we're all about.
Okay, so that's in the context of Bear Highlands.
Yeah.
In the context of using radio as a platform, what else should somebody prepare?
In the context of using radio as a platform, we're more of thinking how to grow this region that we're in. When we started a radio station. We were thinking that we're serving this region called Mbeya. We're serving southern Tanzania. Has a few million people here. How do we get you there? How do we get you comfortable in this market that every single person in this market knows your name? So that's one way that we were looking at it.
And how does that happen?
So that happens with more than just advertising, with events, with activations, any single way that we feel that we can introduce you to that market, we'll do it for you.
Speaking of advertising, I can only imagine how there are probably in the tens, maybe even hundreds of times when you would get an ad that is suited for people in Dar. Afina tumokweno. Hivi mnafanyagaje?
We change it.
Mnaibadilisha.
We change
it. Mnamrudisha.
Exactly. Kwa sababu unajua watu wengi, watu wakiishi Dar wanaamini kwamba Tanzania nzima ni kama Dar. And no, it's not. It's a huge country, different interests. Kama Mbeya has 75% farmers. Tangazo la Dar does not suit them. Yani hawatalielewa. That's why unakuta hata vyombo vya habari ambavyo ni vya Dar es Salaam vikienda Mbeya, only maybe a few programs get mileage kwa sababu they don't speak their language. Mtu wa Dar es Salaam will talk about kuna foleni nini, hamna foleni Mbeya. You understand? So really target everything. Yeah.
One more question. What's the biggest BS you've ever heard about radio?
Nobody listens to radio.
I've heard that a lot of times too.
Nobody listens to radio. I've heard that so many times. And sometimes I want to fight. I want to get violent. But you know, I don't get angry anymore because I realize that it's a privilege actually to live in a rural setting. It's a privilege because not everyone gets that opportunity to actually experience life in that realm. But I have lived in a total rural market where you see mwanamke ana miaka 30 anachukua redio anaenda sokoni, akitoka sokoni anatembea nayo anaenda shambani. I have seen that. So when I meet people like that, I don't get angry. I used to get angry. I used to want to fight. But now I don't. I just learned to educate them that, you know what? You have access to information in urban areas. It's not the same access you have in rural areas because of infrastructure. So how do we use this area to reach your market?
So basically what you believe works here doesn't mean it works there.
Exactly.
Even if it's the same country, same language, same people, but not really.
Exactly.
Jackie, this is by far the best conversation I've ever had with anyone about radio.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you so much.
Asante sana.
Asante.
Karibu kwenye Msasa, where we talk to successful people about failure.